Hi, I'm David Hamburger, and in this lesson, we're going to look at how to create call and response statements using Western swing chords. So we're playing blues licks in kind of a jump blues style. So instead of the minor pentatonic scale, I'm using this combination of major and minor pentatonic sounds where we've got the flat third and the major third, and then coming over to the fifth, and then the sixth, and then also sometimes the seventh, and then the root, and then flat third and major third up here. So you get this combination of sounds that we can make single note licks out of. And then we're going to answer those single note licks with different combinations of sixth and ninth chords with these 3-note voicings that come straight out of Western swing playing, out of the kind of voicings that the steel guitar players in Western swing used. It's a great sound, and for playing more sort of up-tempo or jump style blues, it's a really cool sound. So here's where the voicings come from. We're going to just stay right in A. I'm playing a steady bass with my thumb on the A string, and for now we're just going to vamp in A and not worry about going through the whole chord progression, just so we can get some of these voicings under our fingers. So if we start looking at what the chords are, let's start with the simplest thing, which is an A triad on the top 3 strings. So here we've got the root and the third and the fifth of A. Now if we move up the neck, the next version of an A triad we can get on the top 3 strings is here with the third and the fifth and the root. And the next one we can get is here with the fifth and the root and the third. And then if we kept going, we'd be up an octave from the very first voicing with the root and the third and the fifth. So we're going to start with that. Now, the classic sound of Western swing chords is a major sixth chord, which means you take the basic triad, the root, third, and fifth, and you change the fifth to a sixth. So up a whole step. So if we were thinking of the root here, A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's the sixth note up from the root. So there's A, now we've got a 6. So if we go up to this voicing and we find the fifth and we raise it a whole step, we get this voicing with the root and the sixth, sorry, the third, the sixth, and the root. So, and then if we go up here, well, here's the fifth of this chord voicing. So we raise that a whole step, and we get this. And then finally, we're back to this up an octave. So now we have this. And just as a side note, if you think these sound like minor chords on their own, you're right, because an A6 chord has the same notes as an F sharp minor chord. So, and then, but when you play them over an A, they sound like A6, which is what we want. Now, if you take this A6 chord and you move every note down 2 frets, you get another really cool and really useful chord, which is A9. So here we've got the flat 7 and the 9 and the fifth. So here's the root. The flat 7 is a whole step down from the root. And the 9 is the same thing as the second. So if you went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's the 9th note up from the root. It's also just up a second from the root as well. It's called a 9th because in this case we already have a 7th in the chord. So if you're thinking about chord tones up from the root, root, third, fifth, flat 7, we're climbing up by intervals of a third. After the 7th, the next interval in the chord, going up another interval of a third to get there, is the 9th. So that's how it's called the ninth and how we get it, but you don't have to really worry about any of that if you don't want to. All you need to know is that if you take this A6 chord and you go down a whole step, you get an A9 chord. And then when you're here on this A6, again, if you go down a whole step, you get another A9 chord. Here's the ninth, up a whole step from the root. Here's the fifth, and here's the flat seven. And then up here, if we start with this A6 chord and we go down a whole step, we get another A9 chord. Here's the fifth, here's the flat seven, here's the nine. And then of course up here. So we've got A6, A9, A6, A9, A6, A9, A6, and A9. Finally, because all of these pairs of sixth and ninth chords are exactly 2 frets apart on every string, we can actually connect them up chromatically, meaning we can move by half step to get from one chord to the next. So we can do that here, and then here, and finally here. And so that means now we've got these chord shapes. We can also just go down by a half step and back up if we want to. Whether we're on a ninth chord like we are here, or we're on a sixth chord like here. Which means this is how we're going to create all these answers. So if we start off with a basic lick, we can then answer it by coming into the sixth by a half step, and then resolving it down to the sixth chord down here. So along with the bass, that would give us this. And we could repeat that lick and extend it through a longer blues phrase, and then jump up here and answer it all the way up here, and repeat this half-stepping move. So the first 2 licks in the example I played in the opening are kind of like, you've got the call and response from the single note lick and the chord, and then that whole thing itself gets its own answer with an elongated lick and an elongated chord phrase. So this is the beginning of the answer of like, well, how do you come up with ideas and how do you develop a solo that's coherent? And some of it involves just making sure there's some sort of internal logic to each thing that you do step by step. So a phrase answered, the phrase repeated and extended, and then the answer elaborated. And then finally, all of that with a phrase that now goes up instead of down, and then a longer chord phrase to answer it. So now that whole thing has this structure to it where you've got short phrase, short answer, longer phrase, answering from a higher point on the neck. And all of that is answered by this third phrase, which in turn is answered by a much longer chord phrase that takes this, everything we've just played, and then extends it. And just to break down what's going on here, we're starting with a ninth chord, half stepping into an A6 chord, going down to an A6, and then playing just single notes. You could harmonize it, but at this point, you kind of need a little bit of breathing room, so it's not all this dense chord texture. So that gives you a little bit of room. And then here's A9, A6, A9, A6. And then again, one single note to A9, and we're going to come up chromatically now from A9 to A6, but we're going to play off of this open E string, which is the 5th of the chord. Again, a little more single note breathing room. You could play, but it feels a little dense. So on the strong beats, you're hitting these chords. So the whole thing played slowly sounds like this. Okay, so that's a way to start using these Western swing chords to create call and response statements and to start developing your ideas when you improvise. If you'd like more ideas about how to develop your improvisation, how to work on arranging, how to build your repertoire, how to practice and put all of that together, you can head to my website, fretboardconfidential.com, and I'll see you in the next lesson.